gonna steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
You mentioned I look good sometimes.
Yeah, it's nice, eh? Isn't that a nice thing?
That's a nice thing to say.
Sound nice. All right. Bad ideas?
Good stories. Number 18?
18. Holy
Yep.
shit. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
People will sooner or later wonder, what the fuck? Why can't they figure out how to do this properly? I'm like, yeah, just too lazy, really.
Oh, you didn't catch on that we don't know what we're doing yet?
We are not experts. That was a real big current in the first few, and
yeah,
then we let it
exactly.
slide.
We can definitely bring that we are no experts.
Yeah, we pretend we're experts now. See, it's funny. I had this plan to get this thing out of my face, but now when I move my arm, I bump it, you know? So this whole phallic thing, just like right there, right there.
It's too much for you. Yeah.
Distracting.
Yeah.
Very
well,
distracting.
as they do. Hey, I mean, if you're not distracted by a penis, what's it even doing?
Well, yeah, in close proximity to your face. Right? It's around,
Yep.
and it's distracting if it's around.
It's almost
but when
insulting
it's
if
like
it
inches
isn't.
away.
You know what I mean?
It's like, wow, fuck, this is the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Jeez, elephant yet. That would be distracting.
So what's new? How you doing? Okay.
Just trying out this new beverage.
Yeah, the yerba mate. Jose first hooked me up with a big bag of it, and I had to put it away. I think I actually retired it because I was getting too frazzled. My house would be spotless, you know, like the old Dexedrine wife, you know. You got the vacuum out like a
That's
motherfucker.
hilarious. And you're on the roof somehow.
Like, doing the gutters.
Yeah.
Gotta do the gutters. No one's
Yeah.
doing it for us. So yeah.
No, it turns out you were bit by a radioactive spider. It's not the weird tea you've been drinking.
Yeah. So
Yeah, what have we been up to? Well, just working a bunch, which is unnatural for me. I don't like to work, so been but it's been good. Driving around, having interactions. What else is good? Saw my mom yesterday for the first time in fucking 7 or 8 months, I guess, at least.
she's down in the
Maybe
States,
longer
but
than
she's
that.
up now.
Yeah, she managed to jump through enough hoops and do enough paperwork and shit that they let her sneak up and come right to my granny's place out in the middle of nowhere. So
Is she
went out there and visited her
for a
there.
while, or how does that
She,
work?
she had to go right there, stay there, and then as soon as she was done, turn around and come back.
See, I've been-
There was
yeah,
kind
did
of
she
some
drive?
extenuating circumstances. Yeah.
See, and I wonder about that, you know, because like B and I talked about possibly traveling a little, and I'm not sure I'm really stoked on the amount of.
There's still, like, she's out of North Dakota, and, like, for her working in the
Well, that's not
prison,
that far.
she gets tested every week, and they're still having outbreaks. She said it's, there was 400 the day she left, new cases in the state, and they got just under 800,000 people, I think, in that state. So compared to Saskatchewan, it's a similar population,
I
and
think we might be a little higher, but yeah,
yeah, we're maybe even exactly, we're maybe even a little bit more, and I think we've got just under 1,800 cases.
we're so sparsely.
You know what I mean? But they are too, right?
Oh,
they're
okay.
the same size population, and it's not a small state. North Dakota is a pretty good chunk.
Oh, okay.
And it's just we've been doing stuff that they've not been doing,
Yeah. Well,
and
that's
in
just
the,
it.
and in the times you needed to early, right?
See, and that's just it. We take for granted where we are that like COVID kind of almost passed us, or at least that's the attitude
Wow.
that a lot of people have.
I think
right?
it's just like everything else. Saskatchewan is just the last. You know what I
The
mean?
last to catch
yeah,
on.
It'd be fashion,
We're
fucking.
supposed to be
yeah,
sick.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
told us we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sick now.
Still clan meetings like last week. Hey, people. Nobody's doing that anymore.
No, it's a thing of yesteryear. You kind of got to step boldly into the 90s. Oh. So,
Saskatchewan stepping boldly into the 90s. Yeah, that's a perfect fucking slogan for this
I
province.
think that is. Well, man,
I don't
especially-
mind that. The 90s weren't so bad.
No, they got some good music. Actually, I'm stuck in the 90s. That was sort of like my idealized. That's when music kind of got to its epoch for me, or its acme. It's like that's as good as it gets, and now it's all downhill from here. Anything that happened, like metal bands that happened after the 90s, I wasn't really digging. Hardcore, I seem to think the 90s, late 80s, 90s were kind of like my favorite years of hardcore. It was just the right combination of aggression and punk rock, and like it still seemed maybe it was just because I was coming into it and I was just like had the spirit that I thought it should have, and then it just kind of ended up becoming diluted. Interestingly enough, the internet
I was you said
exploded.
diluted and then pointed at me.
Diluted. No. Well, and then this is a very important thing. I think this is actually a hugely underrated and important thing, that the internet happened in the mid 90s. The internet broke in
Yep.
like around 96. So all of a sudden people had access to things that they never had before. Geographic differences were like erased. You know, what's that band doing over here? What's that band doing over here? Versus before, it was sort of like everybody's in a landlocked island. You know, you're almost like a little Hawaii.
A lot of your shit can only get as far as your van can drive.
Yeah, whatever. What bands are out there? I don't know. I better read liner sheets and figure it out, and then order some records and the local record store that'll actually bring stuff in versus like the big chain places.
Well, and it was quick too. How the internet, people started using it to find out information, to being like, well, no, we can just move music around too, then, right? And then all of a sudden, it's like it didn't really matter. You didn't even get to just know about them. You could listen to their whole fucking discography before you ever see them.
Yeah, and I found that a lot. Where all of a sudden, let's say, well, bands like Misfits. You know what I mean? When I was first into the Misfits, was like 30 years ago. They were an enigma. Like you could get a cassette copy of a copy of a copy, and it was all their recordings were shitty in the first place. But when you get a copy, you're like, what do these guys even look like, and what are these lyrics? And I heard they drink blood on stage, and all kinds of crazy stories.
Yeah, goddamn internet ruined all the mystery for everything.
I think it a little bit
pulled the
because
veil back too fucking far.
Suddenly, I'd be like, you know, somebody's like, I'm a Misfits fan. I'm like, oh really? What's your favorite album? And they're like, oh, I don't know, man. I downloaded the whole discography off of a torrent site. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
I guess, you know, and that's not to disparage the people that did that, but it's a different thing when you're fighting.
You didn't
tooth and
grow
nail.
with it, and you know what? And there's lots of stuff that I like, albums that I listen to, and you know, read all the fucking liner notes and everything. I'll still know every name of the song from the album, right? Whereas there's stuff I love now, like I'm really really into the Bronx.
I like
but
that band.
but there's still songs that like when I hear it, I'm like, no, I know I love this one, but I can't remember what the fuck the name of it is.
I can't
right?
remember.
Because I haven't read it 70 times like I did when I was going through my CDs.
Well, the other element is when I was like early teens or whatever, I was a misfit. You know, I didn't fit into society. I didn't fit into social groups. I didn't fit into my family. My neighborhood kids thought
Regular
I was a
shaped
freak
pants.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't fit into regular clothes. So I'd sit there with my records, right? And I'd sit with my records, and they were sort of a solace that there was other freaks out there that felt the same way as I did. And when I was finally able to get out of my neighborhood and go to the neighborhoods where there was other punk rockers, and I'm like, what music do you listen to? Because I listen to this, and this is only in my small little city, let alone in different areas of the country or different areas of the world. And like, for me, the great neighborhood I grew up was called Pacific Heights, and it was kind of like lower middle class, you know, a bunch of working class families and like some welfare families, but mostly lower middle class people. And you know, I took a big jump across the freeway to another neighborhood called Fairhaven, and I met punk rockers in Fairhaven. I'm like, what music do you listen to? And then another jump past John A. McDonald Street into, you know, Confederation, and I'm like, well, what are these punks listening to? And you know, so when we eventually, we're all kind of a group of friends within BMX distance, we were able to hop on the bus and go to Broadway or downtown, where like the big skaters would all kind of meet and congregate. And well, what's that band logo on your grip tape, you know? And then next thing you know, we're exchanging cassettes. That was like traveling. Like now as an adult, it was the equivalent of me going to Japan. Or me going to, you know, as a 13-year-old kid going across the river versus
no
across
shit.
22nd Street or, you know, John A. McDonald. And I think the internet's opened that up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Hugely. So, yeah. And it's kind of neat going to Japan and stuff and meeting other nerds that are really into a culture that they've never really been able to touch. And they're fucking right into it. It's super rad, you know. Yeah, as much as a keener I was growing up as like a punk rocker who wanted to know what punk rock was supposed to be about, and then, you know, kind of like interested in the chopper culture when you're not from like the hot rod chopper world and you buy Horse magazine or whatever. You go to Japan, you meet exactly the same guys, just like, you know, the customs clubs, like the Bastards and stuff. You're like, you guys are keeners too. They're like, yes, and we recognize that we're all nerds.
Yeah,
Right? That's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, it just has to be the stuff that we're nerds about. It's pretty cool. Yeah, motorcycles and rock and roll. Those are cool things to be nerds about.
Well, yeah, as opposed to like criminal subcultures and shit like that.
Yeah, it's still kind of cool.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Fuck. What else do I know? I don't know. I didn't have a very interesting week. Missed out on doing stand-up at the open mic on Black Cat because I just didn't fucking leave the house on time.
So how many?
I even had a whole other bit done up so I didn't have to do the same one from the week previous, and I was like, that's pretty sweet if I can keep doing a new 5 minutes every time.
It'd be really cool to record them and listen back.
Actually,
to them.
I have been a little bit while I've been driving to try and test stuff out and then listen back to it. Actually, I got something I'll play for you right now. This is a...
How are we gonna do this? I don't know.
No, I'm just gonna play it. It'll be loud enough you'll be able to hear it through this fucking thing, I'm sure. this is something I don't remember what exactly the inspiration for this was, but it's just a little ditty called Muskrat Fucking.
Oh yeah.
Oh god damn it! Hold on.
Yeah,
hold on.
tech
hold on.
problems.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this right here.
We are not
Here we go.
experts.
Okay, now.
Oh, you can't get pregnant if you're fucking a muskrat. You'll never use human cum to get a muskrat knocked up. It's not possible, you fucking idiot. So I don't know what you're worried about. And put your dick in that muskrat's mouth.
They got fangs.
Yeah, they do.
So you're not getting it pregnant.
No, right. You can't get a muskrat pregnant. Actually, I got a really sweet video of a badger the other day, too. And I thought of you immediately. Because you don't see a lot of daytime badgers.
Daytime badger.
They're few and far between. It's actually really sure. I'm going to show you real fucking whatever. Sidetrack this whole thing with bullshit
Holy
videos.
fuck.
There's no good sound on this, but here, you'll be able to see the badger clearly.
Oh yes, he's very short and hairy, and looks like he might bite you if you fuck around too much.
Yeah, no, that's an accurate assessment.
Yeah.
He will absolutely bite you.
I remember when we were in, I think, grade 8 or 9, went to the local zoo here in Saskatoon, the forestry farm, and this girl, vapid girl from our class, we were at the badger, like little display. They got prairie dogs on one side and badgers on the other, and she's trying to lean over the enclosure to pet the badger.
Yes.
And she's like, "He's purring. He's
Yeah.
purring." And I'm like, "No, I think he's growling at you. That's a leave me the
Yeah.
fuck alone purr."
We call you stumps right away. That's
Gonna bring back a
awesome.
fucking exactly,
No.
a stumpy appendage. where you
Badgers
used
are
to have fingers.
motherfuckers.
That was my purring. Yeah.
I had a near badger experience one time. We were riding our bikes down to Vegas, and we're going through the fucking desert, and I'm looking for all these different critters because I want to see critters I want to see. And I see these animals on the side of the road, and I'm like, armadillos! There was goddamn armadillos! So I stopped my bike and yell, "Hey, we gotta turn around, go back, check out these armadillos." So I come wheeling up real quick, and I stop, and I get off my bike, and I'm looking around. I'm like, where did these goddamn armadillos go? Hey, they couldn't be that fast. And all of a sudden, there's like 6 badgers all popping their heads out of these fucking holes in the side of this thing. Hey, like right there. I'm like, holy fuck! I get back on my bike, and everybody else I was with come rolling up. Hey, I'm like, go, 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 badgers, 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 badgers! We have to be gone.
Well, that's the thing that makes me wonder. Like, people underestimate small animals,
But
But
they aren't even that fucking small. Those things are fucking
Well,
medium-sized
right.
dog almost. And
Yeah, well-
vicious.
Well, okay, so like I saw this thing online, and it was you had to defend yourself with a selection of 2 animals or 2 sections of all these different animals, and there was something like 3 lions and 1 hunter with a rifle, or you could choose 1,000 rats or 30 hawks, and I love those kinds of games.
I love it.
But that's just it, and everybody's
The
like,
game? It's fucking
well, not a
reality,
game.
man.
It would be a cool game.
It's
Actually, it would be a
reality.
good video game. But it's a scenario, and I like those scenarios. And of course, I'm like, I'm gonna take the hawks and the rats. You get 1,000 rats or something? No, something like 30,000 rats. It was an insane
You
amount.
could build a megazord of rats in whatever shape you wanted to.
Well, just think
They could be
about
50
it.
grizzly
Any
bears.
animal, like sure, 1-on-1, they'll tear apart 5, 6, 7, or 8. But when you start putting 100 on one, 100
Mm-hmm.
animals on one, even tiny ones, like you put 100 mosquitoes on my face at one time, I'm probably gonna fall down. I'm gonna be hitting myself and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how tiny you are; those little tiny bites will make a difference. You put 100 rats, and like you fall down, and they start going after different stuff. Like, yeah,
All your bits and pieces?
100%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with the little badgers and stuff like that. Never underestimate the power of the little guy with
Yeah.
heart, right?
Yeah, and teeth and claws.
Or a whole bunch of little guys.
Yeah.
A whole bunch, right?
I like this. We should play this out more.
Well-
Like, what about 70 raccoons? Like,
Well-
would 70 raccoons be a good
I take a
sidekick?
power lifter from the gym
Uh-huh.
and I put him against 100 kindergarten kids.
Yeah.
And they all
You'll
kind of
have
know
you'll
how to
have
fight.
100 dead children.
No.
That's what will
If all those
Are you
kindergarten
kidding me?
kids know,
Are you kidding me?
no, for real.
Yeah,
For
okay,
real.
yeah.
So all those kids know how to fight. Okay.
These
so,
5 and 6 year olds.
Yes.
Okay,
You
yeah.
train them. They're kung fu
Yeah,
kids.
for half a
Jujitsu.
decade, yeah.
They're jujitsu.
Jujitsu babies,
Kindergartens.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's a power lifter, right? People think this huge power lifter because he can lift 200 pounds isn't going to be a problem.
That's
But what
not
do you
even that
do?
much.
Okay, I get it. 500 pounds.
Hey, if he can lift 90 pounds, I mean, who's this superhuman monster? You've got Kung Fu babies fighting the world's weakest power lifter. Yeah, nice scenario.
Very good, very good. So, but no, okay. So let's say all of a sudden, boom, you got 5 kids on a limb, and the
Yep.
other ones are crawling and they're biting, and
Yep.
like he might start taking those kids out.
I've
left
done
and
this.
right.
I've had to handle large groups of small children. And here's what you do, Pat. You just grab 2 of them and you start slamming them into the other ones. That's what you do. It's
Like
easy.
boxing
It's
gloves.
easy. They're like
Grab them
40
by the hair,
pounds.
bang,
Yeah.
bang,
Oh, for
bang.
sure. Yeah, and they get limp or loose. You just drop that one. You grab another one. They're not
heavy.
fast. They're top heavy also. You get them all tipping over easy. Kids got big heads on them.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a scenario that I'd like to play.
Yeah. That I would like to play. Yeah.
I like to watch it play out.
You know what? Epstein actually had a whole chunk of the island that was just that.
Thunderdome.
Yeah, that's what he called it. Yeah.
One power lifter enters. Or one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100 ninja babies leave.
Ninja babies. I only said 30 or 40, kindergarten kids, but babies with
Yeah.
weapons is another one,
my
right?
God.
You give kids with knives for hands.
Yeah.
Like little kids.
Yeah, just a bunch of self-inflicted wounds. They're all scratching themselves and
So these are
Doing
great
baby
scenarios.
shit.
I remember, at work we used to
for what?
debate this one at work a lot. Where what was it? It was Animal Thunderdome, and
Mm-hmm.
around the tattoo shop we all shoot the shit and crack jokes, or at least we used to before things got super serious. Anyways, but
Oh, that woke creeped in under the door. Hey, we got
fuck,
woke in
all of a
here
sudden,
again.
We can't say anything
Damn
without
it.
being human resourced out.
Yeah.
So
And you're the boss.
all right.
You work
I'll
with your
get fucking
brother.
Fired. Animal Thunderdome. 2 animals enter, one man or one leaves, and
No, stay with your first
so-
idea. 2 animals enter, 1 man leaves.
you can't lock up a muskrat.
Hey, they're gonna figure it out. This is how Thunderdome works.
So yeah, the idea was a person has to fight an animal with what they have on them,
Mm-hmm.
and like if you have a knife in your pocket, I guess that's what you got. If you got flip flops on, I guess you're shit out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
So and you could fight what was it? A bear, a cougar, a deer, and I think there was one other one. And I thought a deer was an elk. And so I'm like, fuck, you guys aren't giving those deers enough credit. I think a deer would be a motherfucker if it really wanted to kill you. And they rode me so fucking hard.
Like an elk, probably.
Yeah.
You
And
could
I'm
ride
like,
an elk. They're big enough. Yeah.
Obviously, a cougar wouldn't be a no-go. You know what I mean? I think a cougar... Well, I would rather, I think if I had to, probably try to beat a cougar than I would a bear. Because a bear's just so fucking big.
Yep.
A cougar, you might have some survival,
Well,
maybe.
and I have at least heard stories of people kicking the shit out of cougars.
Yeah.
Somebody choking one out, like that Mata-Leon, that's the lion killer in,
Oh, okay.
in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's the name for the rear naked choke.
Okay.
And
Well,
that's
makes sense.
That's what it's called.
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
to kill a lion, you get its back. You don't get under its belly and have it claw you and bite you to death while you're trying to choke it from the front with a
Anybody-
fucking baseball choke or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, this lion
the
got his
bell choke
gi
on
on.
the-
Yeah. No, you get
This
his
hair
back,
isn't working.
choke that shit. Yeah.
What was it? One of the Gracie brothers, he choked out a pit bull that was trying to attack
Sure.
him one time. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
man.
that was one of their
Yeah, you
things.
get anything's back and cut off its fucking air or blood, it's
Any-
going to be unconscious.
Anybody who plays or with a cat that's
Mm.
like one of those, hey, play with me, fuck you kind of cats. You
Yeah.
know, they latch on with the top and they just
Yeah.
eviscerate with the bottom.
Yeah.
That's what their major
Yeah,
goal is.
yeah,
They
disembowel,
latch.
disembowel,
Yeah,
disembowel.
and all your bottoms gets yucked out, right?
Yeah.
While they're chewing on the top until you basically bleed out or give up
Yep.
the fight. So if you can get around the back, which they probably wouldn't like, but that's
Yeah.
I think, or going for the eyes, that's another one. Any of that stuff that I guess anybody who's trained in any level of martial arts might know, they might have a fighting chance.
Yeah.
You know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
think most guys, I've heard you talking about trying to use jiu-jitsu on an animal like that, is if you're going to be underneath, you got to get north-south, and then you just clamp onto their cock and balls as hard as you
Yeah.
can with your mouth, teeth,
Honey
whatever you
badgers
can
don't
get.
give a shit,
Exactly,
you know.
you get that north-south position.
Well, that's what they say. Fuck this yerba mate, eh? Anyways,
It's good stuff. I like that.
Yeah, I'm getting right into
A little
it.
bit
You
of a
want
zip.
more? You want
I'll
more?
have a taste. Yeah, I'll have a little fucking zippity doo dah.
Zippity doo.
You know, it'd be funny is we get both these in us, and then she comes downstairs and she is like, "Oh my god, you guys didn't drink that yet, did you?" It's like, no, I got the bags mixed up.
Or if all of a sudden, like, we get feedback that, like, that shit's illegal in Canada and we shouldn't have had it.
You guys got nothing to do for a week, right? You're fine. Yeah, your next week was empty. Hopefully, it is now. Like your bowels will be in the very near future.
Yeah,
It's got all the same effects as that cat. It's disembowel
Fucking
you.
cats.
Yeah,
You know-
man, they're nasty. I wouldn't fuck with a cat.
No,
I mean,
no.
like, obviously, if you're making those comparisons, a bear's no goddamn better.
Well, bears are fucking huge,
Yeah.
huge, smart dogs.
Yep.
Right. And for a while there, I thought it was going to be a great idea. I was like, oh man, I kind of like cats. I wish I could find the biggest cat I could find, domestic cat, breed it with another big cat, find the biggest of the litter, breed it with another big cat. I didn't have a fucking clue that I was essentially making a cougar, a domestic cougar. And like, why would I do that? Because cats tolerate us as cohabitators,
Yep.
roommates. They're not our pets. They aren't like.
No, they
pack
want to be
animals.
gone. They're just gone. They just
Yeah,
go. You go where
and
they
if
want to
wanna
go.
fuck your arm up, or
Yeah.
like eat your corpse. I guess that's
shit.
what they would do. Cats do not really love people
Wow.
as much as they
I
tolerate
fucking
us.
knew a guy that bought, I can't remember what they're called, but it's like the biggest breed of cat. And they kind of look like a big bobcat, and they got pointy ears with tufts on top. And they got,
Kind of like lynxes, or
they look very much like a lynx, but they're longer, like leaner and longer.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, they're big. And I think, I don't know what the fuck, his weighed 50 or 60 pounds or some fucking thing. And it wasn't even like a big one, And it got into the roof of the house they were living in and decided that's just where it was going to be.
I'm not coming out.
They couldn't get,
Fuck
how
all ya.
are you going to get it out?
Yeah.
Right? You're going to get up there and wrestle it out? No. It was in a cave in the roof, and that was it. Like,
Get a welding
take the
glove on
fuck
there and
over.
try and drag it the fuck
I
out.
don't know, man. A cat that size, I wouldn't even fuck around. Welding glove.
This carries over to a couple conversations I've been having lately. We're really starting this off with zero direction, but
I know, right? Isn't it nice?
yeah, well, so. Anyways,
Yeah, I guess we'll fucking find out,
I
won't we?
guess so.
Yeah.
We had the most disjointed podcast we've had yet.
I haven't edited one yet. We've got to cut this one to pieces.
I had a good buddy that actually no, okay, I'll start off. Last night I tattooed a friend of mine who immediately had come from a situation where a family member's bully breed dog had absolutely mauled their family cat. Like, we're talking like 2 minutes alone on the head in front of the family with people trying to get the dog off of the
That's
cat.
not great. That's a rough 6th birthday party, I tell you what.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when it happened to me.
Yeah, hey, you're like, it's one of the only memories I have, actually. It's overshadowed everything. Everywhere I look, all I see is a mangled cat face.
Well, right, and like they have kids. Kids
Yeah.
witness this. Like the
fuck
aunts,
yeah.
the aunt was visiting, and I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah, like I was joking about that. Like, these are memories I have from my youth, yeah.
Oh, for real?
Animal
You saw something
dismember,
like that?
man. Oh, shit like that all the time we were growing up.
really?
My
Yeah.
dad killed more of our dogs than I can even fucking count.
Yeah, that's harsh.
It was,
That's so
yeah,
harsh.
continually. And there would be sometimes, yeah, there was scrappy doos amongst the animals and something was dead. And,
Yeah, I guess, you know.
yeah.
But this one, we little kids had witnessed it, and and she was all fucked up for her tattoo, but it went pretty
Right?
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, she's like, I just saw this shit. I just came from this. I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit. And then another close friend of mine is like, hey, does anybody have a line on purebred pit bulls? Because my girlfriend wants one for home defense. Mm-hmm. And I figured, okay, this gives me something.
Actually, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
girlfriend is a home defense. You know what I mean? She's been kung fu fighting and shit.
Yeah, she could be probably, you know.
Yeah,
well,
fine. Well, you should at least distract him for a minute
invest
till
in a
somebody else
shotgun.
gets there.
Well,
yeah, yeah.
so
right.
I'm
Actually, sorry, just picture her with a shotgun now.
yeah, well, that's a whole. I
That's
do
what
my
I'm
best
talking
not to picture her with a shotgun.
Pump that action.
Yeah, Jackie.
Getting that
All right,
slug.
but this brought me back. Like, I had pit bulls for a long time. I'm a big fan of bully breeds. I did my best to prepare myself when I got pit bulls for the shit that I may encounter, and it still didn't stop me from my dogs tearing themselves apart or tearing each other apart 2 times. You know, to the tune of probably over $5,000 in vet bills to try and get them sewn back together. You know, because I loved my dogs. I wasn't the type to just take it out to the farm and shoot it. You know, I'm like, well, fuck. And you come home when your dogs have torn each other apart, and it's kind of like your kids got in a knife fight. It's
Fucking right,
it's like, holy shit. I remember I came back, and my dogs had gotten into it, and my dog Hemi was laying in some mud, and I'm like, holy shit, girl, why are you all covered in mud? You know, you're covered in mud. And I got closer, and I realized that most of it was blood and not mud. And she had a tear all the way down her forearm, and like she needed, I think,
Down to her hand?
well, down to her hand. Well, you know, and she needed fucking 15 internal stitches and 17 external stitches. She had punctures through the top of her mouth into her nasal cavity. Her ear just about torn off. Abrasions all the way around. Luckily, they didn't kill each other, you know.
Yeah.
And this was the first time my male, Shady, had kicked the shit out of her. And I don't think people quite realize about pit bulls that any pit bull you know today is the product of generation after generation of breeding of winning fighting dogs.
Yeah.
Because they would kill the pit bulls that didn't fight, they would kill the pit bulls that lost, they would kill the pit bulls that were human aggressive, and only the winning dogs were allowed to breed for 100 years, 150 years. And then suddenly people said, well, you know, I want a family dog. I like the way they look. They're a tough reputation, you know, I want that dog. So some assholes decided to go against their breeding and also teach them to be human aggressive. So they took that game dog, that game dog. Once upon a time when these were fighting dogs, you needed to have a dog that wouldn't bite people. So when you dive between two fighting dogs to separate them, they wouldn't just turn on the person separating them. So that was bred out of them. If you attacked a person, you were put down. And so now to get them to become human aggressive again, you have to try and break their genetic breeding, right? And so people have done that, and that's why when they actually attack people, that's what they were bred for. All of the characteristics that make a pit bull are made to be an efficient fighter, right? Like their staunch, like posture, their shoulders, their head width, like their tails, all of that stuff. The entire gear is to drive into something and attack it, right? Now that's why a lot of people want breed-specific legislation. I think you just need responsible ownership. You need to understand that these dogs are going to be animal aggressive, that they aren't meant for home defense.
It might take
people.
generations and generations and generations of breeding them, of having them only be single dog households for something like that, where it's like, no, you can give this one all the attention it needs and do everything you can for it, and you can't have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them because you get a fucking pack, and that's not how these. And it's unfortunate because I don't think that they're the only aggressive dog breed. I don't think that they're the only ones who can potentially fuck one up. It's just they're the ones that have been picked for this purpose, just like Chihuahuas were picked for being fucking cute and small. We're gonna breed them.
There were also Mousers and Ratters.
Well, but even that's
maybe
been
Mousers.
kind of bred out of lots of them,
yeah.
right? And like, because my half terrier one, he's got that in him. Hey? But my other one, she doesn't really have that. Get in there and fight with fucking little mice and shit like that. Anyways, it's just unfortunate for these ones because this is what they are. They're the product of their fucking breeding, and because there's lots of people that definitely jump to the defense, and absolutely so. Of not all pit bulls are bad.
100%.
I don't remember you ever having experiences with yours where they were aggressive with people, or at least not that I remember you talking about it. And so you know what I mean? So obviously there's an example of, they can be. You can figure out how to integrate them. It's just you have to be fucking aware of that, and you can't treat them like other dogs.
You need to know what you're dealing with.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't buy a Mogwai and feed it after midnight or get it wet, right?
Yeah.
So,
Will I ever tell you my some dogs you don't pet story?
no.
Oh, okay, it's kind of funny and shitty all at the same time. But this was a story about my old man, whose nickname again was Animal. We were getting ready to go and bury my grandpa's ashes, and we're going out to meet everybody on his side of the family. And he's been feuding with them for fucking ever since he was a kid, basically. And so when me and my younger brothers pull up out to this spot out on the lake where we're trying to meet everybody, my old man's got his truck parked on the side of the road right when you come in. Hey, and I'm like, fuck, yeah, it's begun already. You know what? I can see he's just huffing and puffing and all puffed up and pissed off, hey. And my stepmom's sitting there just kind of like looking off, like, holy fuck, he's at it again today. So we get up there, so what's going on? He's like, well, I fucking told him I didn't want those fucking cousins here, and Jesus Christ. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, for sure, yeah, get it all out. And so me and our 2 younger brothers are both standing there just like kind of watching him. And my middle brother, his wife was there, and she had not had as much experience with our father as everyone else around the circle
With his
had.
extremely adaptive coping mechanisms.
She's a very caring and thoughtful person and wants to help all the time. And when she sees someone hurting and struggling, she wants to reach out to them, and she wants to engage with them, and she wants to, let's talk about it, let's figure it out. His nickname's Animal. You know what I mean? So
There's some animals you don't pet.
She comes in and she goes, oh, sweetie, Clarence, let me. And she goes to put her arms around him. And he just kind of gets bristly and steps back and goes, don't you ever put your fucking hands on me. And this is his daughter-in-law. And turns around and gets back in the truck, and she's kind of standing there shell-shocked, and we're all just like, in our heads, all 3 of us are kind of like, well, that's what you get. I mean, what do you think was going to happen,
But
so,
you've grown up with the man. Right?
Exactly,
So
We knew that I'm not touching him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to pull back a stump. So he fucking... we're all kind of standing there quietly, and I couldn't think of anything better to say than this, because I was like, I wanted to convey the message, but I didn't want to be cruel about it. I was like, there's some dogs you don't pet, and then we
That's
just
so
walked away.
valid. That's so valid.
You gotta fucking know that. Like it's I want to help every dog myself, but even I am cautious, and I don't just give them all my hand to give me a chomp.
Well, you know what? And anybody who handles animals, like SPCA people or rescue people, they've got that gauge, where they feel out an animal and they're like,
Fucking right.
is this something I need to be
You
stepping
just said
in
animal like 9 times again. This is who we were dealing with,
Yes,
right?
right.
You need to know how
And-
to gauge animal. You
and
need
I'm
to
not
know
sure
how
he-
to
yeah,
understand his mood.
well, I'm sure he's not always on or always triggered. Well, you know him better than me. You know?
Dude.
There was never a downtime?
It was very. I told you 2 weeks before he died, he tried to stab me. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like
yeah.
he fucking. It was. There was. It was good times. I'm not gonna say it was always bad, but it was a hair god. It did not take anything to initiate animal. Like I
See-
told you about the time I saw him slap that guy viciously in front of us. Oh, this is a good
There's
one,
been a
too.
few of
We're driving through town one day, and this is after my folks split, and my dad, like, he's being all kind of like how he normally is, just talking, laughing, having a good time. And then all of a sudden, we see this truck goes by, and then he gets real quiet. And then we're all like, oh, fuck, what's going on? And he's following this truck, and we're not going the right way home anymore, eh?
The joke stopped.
Yeah, totally. Well, fuck, so we pull up behind this guy's vehicle, and when he pulls it behind his house, and he goes to get out, and he goes, don't you guys get out of the fucking truck. Just stay here and be quiet. So we just sit there like, holy fuck. So he gets out, and he goes over to this guy's driver's side door, and the guy's like, oh, hey, animal, what's going on? When he opens it up, the old man grabs him and drags him out and starts slapping him with an open hand back and forth, hey, like, don't you ever fucking say anything about her again. Because he thought this guy was talking shit about my mom at some point. This is even after they split. And it was something totally innocent. It was not the case at all. And this is even a friend of his, and that was enough for him to go fucking red. Like, he was totally fine. Then he sees him drive by, and it was just snap. Okay, this is what we're doing now. I'm gonna go assault this man, and assault him. He did viciously in that
Assault
fucking
him,
alley.
he did.
And the guy's crying, and stop, and his girlfriend gets out of the other side of the truck, and she's like, animal, you lost your fucking mind. And he's like, you better get in that fucking house, or I'm gonna give you a taste of what he's getting. And she goes, I'm calling the cops. And he goes, fucking call him. So she goes running inside, and I was like, holy fuck. And then he just gets back in and doesn't say anything as we drive back to the house. Eh? I was like, so that's how quick that can happen. Huh, okay,
and you know
duly
what?
noted.
Well, and that's just it. And it probably never. He probably, in his mind, thought he was doing the righteous, noble thing
Every time.
and he was the good
Yep.
thing in that situation.
He was getting the bully. He
Yes.
was not a bully.
Oh,
he was
I
teaching
guess,
the bully
eh?
a lesson.
Well,
yes,
and-
that dude. There's nothing he hated more in life than bullies.
Yeah.
And I'd never met a bigger one.
Well, and that's exactly how it works, I think it's the same deal. And then those kids are taught that this is how you deal with
Those
that
kids,
situation.
that was us. Yes.
Yes, those kids.
my younger brothers and I. Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
how you deal with a hostile situation. That is what a man does, and then you have to unpack that shit as you grow up, and re-examine your own coping mechanisms and like how you handle problems, and not redlining at the drop of a hat. You know what I mean? Not just go.
Well,
you
and
know?
what's insane is to say this is like it's such a negative fucking thing to do, but like when you do need that, it's a very handy tool to have.
We were
to,
talking
to
about that with-
instantly be able just to switch it on like that. It's like
With that
when you-
monstrous
when you
side.
don't exactly when you don't ever need it. It's like, oh, this thing's a burden. I hate how it always comes out in business meetings, and I hate how it comes out when I talk to my family. But then you're about to get into some real mischief in a fucking dark alley somewhere, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, huh?
Or you
And
run
sometimes
into-
that's enough just to diffuse it too, because if all of a sudden people realize you're not a fucking victim anymore, you're a
Yes.
willing participant in this thing that's about to go down. They're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I thought we were just going to take advantage of this person.
Predators seek prey. They
Fucking
don't
right.
seek challenge,
Yep.
and that carries from like human interaction to the Serengeti. They don't look for the strongest, most able to fight. They look for the limping and the weak and the straggling. The
Yeah.
old and the ill. And as soon as even the small and straggling are willing to put up a fight, those predators think twice because they don't want a life-threatening injury.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough one. We were in our animist class. Buddy was talking about the inherent presence of malevolence in reality in the ecosystem, because there are those individuals and those systems that are not just like, I'm doing my thing and I accidentally hurt you. There are those things out there that are like, I'm going to hurt you because I can. And we can't deny that they exist. That's that monstrous element, right? So sometimes you need to dig inside yourself and to be able to have a boundary and say, what is that guy name? Let's just go with Balrog from Lord of the Rings. And you have to be the wizard that says, you shall not pass. This is the line I'm drawing in the sand and you can't cross this. You have a right to be whatever kind of fucking monster you want in Monster World. But I'm going to be the line that says you can't cross over into my world. Now, in order to maintain that line, you need to be able to be a bit of a monster yourself. You need to be
Yeah,
able
no,
to
fair enough.
access that, because you
Yeah.
can never threaten something that you can't force if somebody puts it on you.
Yeah.
Like, do this or else. Or else what? or else I'll say it again.
Yeah. I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, then I guess I'm gonna let
My
you do
brow
whatever the
will
fuck
furrow.
you want. Yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell people about it on the internet later.
Yeah, I'm going to shame you. Well, hey, until you run into someone with no shame.
Yes.
Which is the issue you have right now with the pumpkin in charge.
Oh yeah, well fuck that guy.
Hey, that's something you can't hold someone accountable for the lies they tell if they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I think that he exhibits so many psychological traits of like narcissism and sociopathy and like just like malignant self-absorption. You know, like I'm
But
the important thing.
all the things that make you a CEO or a fucking
Yeah.
chairman of the board.
You definitely need to compartmentalize
Or
your
if your dad
humanity.
gives you the business, that helps too.
Or both, because I'm sure the dad. Like,
Yeah.
I saw this one quote. I forget where it was, and it's like, "There's not a billionaire on this planet that came by that money ethically."
Fucking right.
You know, there's people that finance both sides of the Civil War. They'll sell like weapons to whoever fucking buys. You
Yep.
know, and like they're running the banks and just like
Yep.
lend money to whoever wants to
Wow,
borrow the
and
money.
those are in the systems where you can have lobbying. Those are the families, the hierarchy, or the monarchies, basically, that
Or
are still
oligarchies
that are
or-
still running shit because they're lobbying the politicians to get what they want. They can still control and make all the fucking laws and the rules without actually having to be in the room doing it,
Well, okay,
and can then pass that power on to their children.
yes, they can. And it is. And it's weird because there is an echelon. And like these people know how to talk to each other. They know how to handle money. They know how to talk about money. And that's why you hear the term old money and new money. Like even if like, let's say you and I, for some reason, hit it rich and we have a ton of money, we will never speak. We will never act like those people that have come from generation after
sure.
generation after generation. So even if somehow, by the grace of whatever's out there, we ended up with access to these high-end country clubs and these like social events where it's like ultra rich, we would still be isolated because we're not wearing the right clothes, we don't have the right language, we don't play the right golf, we don't play like and these are in
I have so many issues with my body that they're just not like. Also,
wear a muumuu, dashiki or something like, hello, I am here, like
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy and Coming to America.
Yeah, that's
That
a
would
good
be
movie.
me, yeah. But so I don't mind being a lowbrow scumbag. There's so many levels on that, and that takes well for real. Like if I can wear my heart on my sleeve, and I can say, guess what? I'm fucking ugly. I'm rude. I swear. I've got a lot of toxicity in my past. I'm an ex-junkie. I'm into S&M. I do all kinds of fucked up stuff. That's me. Now, what are you bringing to the table? Do you think I'm going to judge you for who you are?
Right.
Now. And it's weird because I'm a flawed individual and I'll wear all my flaws on my sleeve, like my heart on my sleeve. So anybody who's a good moral person who also happens to have flaws is going to feel comfortable around me because I'm really not going to fucking judge you for being a bit of a fuck up. Now, if somebody's a real malevolent person and like they're cruel and they are a real bully, I can't really tolerate it. And I won't even necessarily be in a position to fucking stand up and say, you shouldn't do that. I just won't associate with you. It's a write-off.
Yep.
You know, I can't be in that environment. I won't be there. But those people that are, you know, just otherwise moral people with a couple little fucking hiccups that they beat themselves black and blue about, yeah, we get along fine. We get along fine.
Well,
you
and
know?
it's like you said, like disengaging from that bully shit. I mean, that's how they exist. If you don't engage with them and they got nothing to fucking do, well then they got no control over you.
Yeah, it's weird because okay, so this brings me to the one thing I had, one of two things I had written down to discuss today. Watched this documentary last night called The Social Dilemma, and it's regarding social media, and it's fucking, I think, one of the most important documentaries I've seen in a very long time because it addresses, well, a whole ball of stuff that goes along with social media use, abuse, both by the users and by the people operating it. And that confirmation bias is one thing they talk about. How just the other day we talked about how my feed is very much molds my worldview, right? What pops up in my feed molds my worldview. But at the same time, depending on where you are in the world, if I type in climate change is into Google, right? Depending where I am in the world, those search results will be catered to what they think the narrative should be in that area, or to those that most people search. So if you're in a progressive area or a left-leaning area, it's going to be climate change is changeable, it's inevitable, it's harming the world. And if you're in some conservative area, it's going to be climate change is a hoax, climate change is a leftist conspiracy. And you literally get this as part of your news source. So these social media
Well, and that's interesting too, because there doesn't have to necessarily be intent then with that.
It's an algorithm.
Exactly. Like it's just, no, you're feeding this yourselves.
Yep.
You and the people around you are all asking the same question because you all kind of think that, and then you're having it reaffirmed because that's the first thing you're seeing come up. And even if you don't, and that might be enough for people. Hey, they don't know. Is climate change a hoax? And then the first thing that comes up is, well, here's something saying it might be, and some other people asking this question, and you're like, oh, okay, so the seeds of doubt are there, and maybe that's the truth. And they don't ever read the end of the fucking article. They don't find out who did it. You know what I mean? They don't know the motivation behind it.
Okay, so yeah, with the climate change example, let's say we're on Facebook, right? And I've got a specific attitude about climate change, and I'm clicking on whatever clickbait says my confirmation bias, and I join groups that support my confirmation bias. The algorithms that have been programmed into Facebook to make it an interactive and interesting and profitable enterprise will keep feeding me the things that I click on the most. And so I end up and sending me notifications and saying, hey, here's an article you should probably read. So I'm actually beginning to get a controlled and prescribed narrative of reality, which reminded me is like the bullies who live in bully world, that's just a normal world for them. They never see outside that. Well, whatever my extremist reality or whatever my moderate reality is, I start getting fed one narrative and I start being pushed not intentionally by individuals, although they can. People can purchase this media and say, hey, I want this to go to these people that click off these little buttons. That narrative starts becoming more and more polarized on either side, left or right. Like, so those people you see on the internet that you're like, Jesus Christ, I can't understand why these fucking idiots think this way. They are never exposed on any of their social media feeds to information from the opposite. They're never given any oppositional research or information. So they don't get the climate change articles that say, hey, it's real. Or they don't get the evidence that say, you know what, this could also be, exaggerated. Right? So they don't get the balanced input. They only get that confirmation bias. And it's a really scary, scary thing. In this documentary, again, it's The Social Dilemma. They used 4 terms that really freaked me out when it came to social media. And this is the result of psychological experts, psychologists, social engineers, and internet armies of guys that work for like Google and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and Twitter that tweak what clicks people's interest and keeps them clicking and send them information and content that keeps them engaging. Right, so they don't want to go out they don't want to go off of these media because then they might miss something, because then they might not get the news, right? And they mistake this narrative for news. They had 4 terms that really stood out to me watching this documentary. When they called one of the models of this is called surveillance capitalism. So they make money by surveilling everything you fucking do. Where you're cruising your social media feed, they're measuring how long you pause on certain pictures. You're cruising along, oh, so he likes that kind of stuff. He's cruising along, boom, oh, he likes cars, likes bikini models, likes this, likes that. Oh, okay, so these are the ads we're going to start sending to you based off of, well, he spends 1.2 seconds more on pictures like this than pictures of this, so there's more likely that he is guided by this thing. Combined with all of these other apps that you've given away your data to, it's like this massive data mining operation. So the other one is pervasive technology. So they've developed technology to persuade you to... Hi, Russ. You checking text or napping?
No, texting.
Yeah, okay.
Just texting.
Texting. So yeah, pervasive tech, which is
You got that whistle nose.
so the pervasive technology is geared to persuade you to engage with it. It will guide you to keep engaging, keep coming back. Like buttons, dopamine hits, love, blah, 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 right? Then they've got another term, attention extraction model, which is the goal of the models of these programs are to basically extract your attention from you, so you are hooked on them. And
good luck.
Well,
because I have it all over the goddamn place. Yeah, get my attention.
Is it between
what,
app
you
and app
video
and app?
games? Yeah.
Is it
No, that's it. That's it. I have no attention to
Oh,
begin with. I'm
okay.
always bouncing around.
And
Yeah.
that's just it. And this like regular stream of dopamine hits from over here and over here and over here will keep you engaging. And then the other guy calls them manipulation engines. Right, and that's what these
Fucking
things are.
right.
So if you get a chance, watch Social Dilemma. Like, there's so much stuff that comes on that they cover on this thing. Well, what was it? The level of depression and self-harm and suicide rates for young women specifically were what they were talking about, increased after about 14 by like 190%, especially in the category of young women that are on social media or are utilizing social media. It's pretty insane that within the last 5 years or 6 years, they've seen an increasing political polarization between people that are engaging on Twitter and Facebook, where the right wing and like the Republicans think the Democrats are going to ruin America, and the Democrats are convinced that the Republicans are just fascists. So and it's being encouraged. So those people are increasingly being pushed one side or the other, and they're seeing less and less of the commonality. What is it? And they say that all of these things, it's a tough one because they can't change them because they're so much invested in a business model surrounding the economic shareholder accountability.
Well, and in defense of the algorithm, it's giving people what they want.
Yep.
It's giving you what you engage in. It's giving you what you're talking about and thinking about. So you want to change it, you have to engage with different shit.
Well, and the more you engage, the more it'll give you. So it's funny, there's this quote, and it's like there's only two markets or trades, I guess, markets that describe their clients or as users, and it's narcotics and social and information technology and social media,
Fuck
right?
yeah, that's right.
And when you think about it, like you look at these terms, you got a persuasive tech, attention extraction, and manipulation. Those still apply to drugs. You know what I mean? It's something that's going to manipulate your consciousness, gives you as much as you want. You get all the dopamine hits, but as soon as you get away from it, you kind of crash. Well, I need that hit again. What am I missing? So you get that hit again, and it keeps going. And they've intentionally done this, or intentionally designed the algorithms to operate like this, using like psychology and neurotech, where they're like, okay, this does this to the brain. This color combination will trigger this in your brain, and it's fucking insane. What was it? Data and behavior mining is what they're calling it, where these companies, because especially ones like Facebook, the huge one, because it also owns Instagram now, it owns WhatsApp, it owns, well, obviously Facebook. There's no restrictions on what they're doing because it's a new model. And so they haven't come in and the government hasn't said, or no governments have said, look, you can only have so much data from people. They're collecting everything you post, everything you like, everything you scroll on, the amounts of times that you're scrolling. And then they're building a model of you. What is this kind of person interested in? What does this person want to do? What is this person going to do? They want to build predictive models.
And
So-
it's all just to squeeze as much money out of you as
to
possible.
take money right now.
Yeah.
And one of these guys, what was it? He put forward one of the options was to tax these people on the amount of data that they can extract from you. So the more data you extract from these people, the more you have to pay, and they will probably not do it so much. That's one way of shutting this down. Like where you say Twitter, you're not allowed to see or to save. You can watch, I guess, but you can't save how many likes this guy has and exactly who he's liking and how much he's liking and how much time he's spending looking at a specific profile and how much interactions he's having with this group of people. Like, and all of that stuff's being mined right now and just stored and stored and stored and accessed. Let's see. They had a couple things of ways. The one guy pointed out that our tools start to control us because it legitimately, social media or our smartphones are tools. They're meant to be a useful little thing. We can, order food, get an Uber, GPS. We can interact with people that we're interested in, families, connect with long lost friends. You can plan events. You can do all kinds of things, but eventually they start controlling us as opposed to us controlling them. And we can at any time change the choices of how we use these tools and not allow ourselves to be exploited by them, right? What was it? The one guy, actually they did a list during the credits, so I'm going to do a brief list of stuff that they recommend to consider if you're looking into how to get out of the data mining operations and get out of the addictive feed. One guy uninstalled all of his time-wasting apps. The stuff that he wasn't really utilizing positively that he would just get sucked into. And like we talk about that. Hey man, I got sucked down the Instagram rabbit hole. I got sucked into Pinterest. Why did I get sucked into Pinterest? Oh, here's another picture I think is really cool. There's an advertisement. Here's another picture. Oh, here's another advertisement being drilled into my head. So he uninstalled the time-wasting apps. They recommend turning off the push notifications for everything. Like, so you decide when you go to check your phone as opposed to your phone deciding when it needs to be checked. So the one guy, he stopped using Google across the board because the more you search, the more they fine tune what they sell you or what they recommend as your searches. He switched up to Quant or DuckDuckGo. He went into, the same guy recommends going into your Google Chrome extensions and setting new recommendations, because the Google Chrome will recommend what it thinks you are most interested in, as opposed to you searching for what, like, legitimate news. It's going to feed you the news articles it thinks you most want to read, which is pretty fucked if you actually want a balanced outlook on stuff. Like, it's only feeding you what it thinks you will like. That's some pretty fucked up shit, isn't it? Okay, instead of suggested news articles by Google or Facebook, seek out the news on your own and seek out opposite perspectives of your own, oppositional research. So check out, if you've got one attitude of one, leaning, let's say you're a left-leaning individual, read articles from a right-leaning point.
Even if you just want to laugh.
Yes, well, it's good to see where they're coming from. And you know what? A lot of it is laugh-worthy, but there might be 10%, that's a valid point. And I think that valid
Well,
point...
you know what? It is true that you start to at least understand why they're upset. Mm-hmm. You may not agree with it, and you may go, well, that's a ridiculous reason to be upset. But they'll eventually get to the point of like, well, no, this is the core thing that pisses me off. And you go, okay, well, I guess who wouldn't be pissed off about that? But the rest of it's fucked.
I think, well, maybe, or maybe it isn't. Because I, in my personal mind, I see a lot of radical leftists emerging, and they've got the most ridiculous ideas on economics, on social justice, on things like that. But you can't talk about it. You can't point out the flaws in their logic without having some sort of word plastered against you. You're a bigot. No, I just questioned your rhetoric. Mm-hmm. And you, it's an easy thing to just slap me with a name. Oh, okay, cool. I'm a bigot because I disagreed with that one little minutia of your doctrine here. I guess that's how you guys work, because you're fucking extremists. And if you go against this extremist...
This is what extremists do.
Yes,
exactly. It doesn't matter which way they're swinging. Mm-hmm. If you're an extremist, yeah.
So another recommendation was to never accept the recommended videos from YouTube. Always, even if they recommend something you want to watch, search it out and go to it on yourself. Because if you just click, oh, that's the one I like, it's just going to keep feeding you. Case in point, like I get a ridiculous mix of stuff of YouTube recommending shit. I watch Jordan Peterson articles on psychology, or on lectures on psychology and religion and the philosophy of self-work. All of a sudden I'm getting all kinds of fucking, I don't give a shit about his opinions on trans rights or women or, men's rights or men going their own way. But like YouTube seems to think that that's the shit I'm into. And I'm like, no, not really. I just clicked, I guess, on too many recommended videos, right? Mm-hmm. Let's see. What is the other one here? Oh, yeah. Before you share information, and I've caught myself doing this one, fact check and source the material. Because emotional reactivity creates engagement because it's more entertaining than rational, boring information. Mm-hmm. If something can make you go, boom, oh, I'm so offended, click share, click engage, fucking pedophiles everywhere, I hate pedophiles, I love children, fuck them. Well, yeah, you're just perpetuating the algorithm to say, ooh, that's a good button to press. Let's keep them engaging with our website by getting them pressing this button, right? Because the more you click on clickbait and propaganda, the more you create financial incentive for those that monetize your feed. Yes. Mm-hmm. So there's other things like we've talked about, Russia and China, with money investing in ads in groups on Facebook that put this inflammatory shit out there that you really want to believe because it's such an outlandish and emotional claim. Join the group, support the cause. Somebody's making money off of that, right? Buy the stuff, like, you know, Y2K. Do you remember Y2K?
Fuck yeah.
When everybody was buying all of the survivalist shit because the computers were going to shut down, somebody made some money off of that. Now
right.
they can engineer Y2K, where it really makes, and this documentary, and once again, you can look up the website, thesocialdilemma.com. The documentary's on Netflix. It's pretty new. They talked about how, sure, if this was just online, it wouldn't be a big deal. Bunch of fucking outraged people pissing on each other and getting mad, offended, throwing words in the ether. That's one thing. But now they're hitting the streets, and they're throwing bricks, and they're throwing Molotov cocktails, and people are getting shot based off of what's happening on social media.
Yeah.
Most of this stuff is being
People getting
organized.
worked up over a fucking meme and going out and burning down Lowe's.
Yes, and like going on YouTube and listening to these lectures and going on, well, fuck, even our podcast, right? We're contributing to it, but yeah, you go on this stuff, you engage with this stuff, and then you go to the real world, and they believe, like, these guys are ex-tech execs and like the guy that was one time the president of Twitter is on this documentary. There's a ton of them. They're all very well credentialed. They're saying that, like, they're really concerned about the downfall of Western civilization due to the increasing polarization of social media.
Well, and what's crazy is, though, again, it's not like an outside effort. Well, with the Russians and the Chinese to spread disinformation, it absolutely is. But nobody's like, we're trying to fucking bring down society by doing this. But everybody who's participating in it in these negative ways, that's exactly what they're fucking doing. They're continuing to feed it, and there's nobody on the outside making us do it. It's just our inner shit. Because again, a lot of this is, you get to see light into like corners of people's psyche that you've never seen before, because they just use Facebook, for example, as a sounding board, like a fucking diary. They just put whatever it is into there. Shit normally wouldn't come up in a conversation, right?
Fucking baby mama,
Exactly.
such a bitch. What's she going to the club for?
Exactly, shit like that, right? And then that's
not what my child support's for.
that's what their world becomes, right?
Well, that's super, super valid. The one guy, he's like, we didn't know when we invented the like button what it would do. You know, he's like, when we wanted the like button, we thought it was going to bring positivity into people's lives. I like that. And then all of a sudden there's little girls that are cutting themselves because their pictures didn't get enough likes, or they're wanting surgery at an earlier age because they don't look right.
And again, I don't know that anybody was like, no, we need to make the like button something that people need to worry about, right? No, that's just what we did to ourselves. We decided this was important and that we were going to put all this fucking value and currency into it.
Well, it's a legitimate tool that some people have misused and other people have found ways to misuse. Like they said that Facebook itself isn't necessarily a toxic, platform, but some individuals figured out the loopholes in order to play with the algorithm and make it a very manipulative thing. For example, Miramar, I guess, and I didn't know anything about this before the documentary. Miramar, to them, the internet meant Facebook. When you were able to get a cell phone, the people that you buy the cell phone from would legitimately load Facebook in and set you up with an account for Facebook, give it to you, and so your first cell phone, Facebook was the internet. Like, the search engines were very secondary to this button you press, and oh, now I have access to the internet. It was Facebook. So there was a regime in Miramar that dumped a bunch of money, which really wasn't a bunch of money. It was just like a relatively affordable campaign to basically say that the local Muslims were terrorists that were unwelcome in Miramar. We need to get them out. And there was attacks, I'm not sure if it went to the degree of genocide, but people being murdered and run out of their house. And like there was like an ethnic cleansing in Miramar due to exploitation of Facebook groups by people with an interest in it.
Oh,
right?
totally. But what's insane is that even people hearing that could still be driven to the point where then they have to go and murder somebody. You know what I mean? Like, again, it's insane to me, because it's like that was the intention to do it, but it's like, yeah, but we have to agree to participate in it. You have to tell me that this is a group that I have to go out and murder, and then I have to go, yep, that's what I got to do. Well, like, and there's no Nobody's coming into your house and doing it. You're purposely going out looking for this information to go, yeah. It's almost like I want to have a reason to go and murder this group, so I'm going to keep looking for this information.
Well,
That's all I
murder
can
is a
do.
very extremist thing.
Wow,
Let's just say
that's-
activism. Let's just bring it
Oh,
dial
fair
it
enough.
back
Yeah, fair
and say
enough, fair enough,
activism.
fair enough,
I
yeah.
went to a Black Lives Matter march.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I go there? Because I didn't go to the Idle No More march. Why is Black Lives Matter in Saskatchewan such a huge button where 5,000 people hit the streets, but Idle No More, which affects Indigenous people from our land, in our land, gets like crickets? You know, why? Because of social media. Because social media pushed a narrative so hard that I'm like, well, I agree with a lot of these politics. I should agree with the narrative. Oh, they're having a rally? I should show my support. So it came from the internet to real life, and I was one of 5,000
Well,
people
And
out on the streets.
I think with those two examples too, though, like at least in this province, the Black Lives Matter movement is something that you can easily get behind because it's obvious. It's obvious that there's systemic racism against people of any shade other than fucking white, and we're still kind of detached from it just because there isn't a huge black community in the province. We don't see that as much, but we know it exists, and we're kind of detached from it. Whereas the issues with the Indigenous community in this province that have we still, honestly, I think many people still feel at least a little bit responsible for them. You know what I mean? Even if we aren't, it's like it's hard to have that.
It's too real.
That's it. We're too close to it because it's you go down to the march, right? And then somebody says, "Well, what are you doing here? You know, don't you have ancestors?" And you're like, "Oh, fuck yeah, I did. They probably did." You know what I mean? Like,
But how easy is
it's-
it for locals to look down in the States and say, these fucking racists?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
You
right?
know?
That's what I'm saying. That's it. That's a thing that's easy to get behind and easy to judge because we're removed from it. Moreover, than the Idle No More, which many people are still participating in the racism that kept that happening, you know, or that
fuck.
keeps it happening, you know. So it's
CBC
harder
shut-
to do because then you're like, well, I do feel like I should, but then you have to self-analyze, and when you self-analyze, you go, well, no, I've said racist things and I've had racist thoughts,
fuck.
and you know, and,
Yeah,
and
I've
with
been
those
balls
groups,
deep in that.
so then
I'm
it's,
that bad guy.
Then it's hard for them to justify going to the walk. Whereas if it's a group that you really haven't had any contact in because of where the fuck you live. That's easy. That's easy to go like, fuck yeah, we should help that. Feed the children. We should feed the African children. There's got to be more money going to Africa. And again, children in all communities across North America, there's always somebody going without fucking food, right?
Children in our city.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like there's children down the street that don't have everything they need, but it's easy to detach from the African problem. Oh, we throw some money at it. Whereas like, well, no, how do you fix the local problem? Is it $30 a month like I can do with Africa? No, I actually have to participate
could
in
be.
community. Well, it could be, yeah,
It could be.
but the more immediate thing would be participate in community things and action and help getting programs going, and then going and holding your city councilors fucking accountable and telling them, hey, you guys got to make sure you have these kind of programs happening in our city, and that's more work than $30 a month.
Well, it doesn't need to be.
I know, I agree,
You
but
know,
in our
and-
heads, right, that's what we do because it's easy to send money to the thing across the ocean, whereas instead of walking down the street and doing the thing at the soup kitchen, that's a whole ordeal. And how do we get there? And you have to be face to face with it.
Well-
you have to smell what poverty fucking smells like.
Well, maybe. You don't have to. You know what I mean? You could do that. Hey, every month I donate to AIDS Saskatoon. Every month I think what
Sure,
happens,
no, that's absolutely would be the logical step to take from that. But that's, I think, why people get derailed in the process, right? Because it goes, I can do this one that's easier. I can do this one that's not really that hard, but it's still community engagement and it's real. I can credit card, internet, imaginary children in Africa get fed. Walk down the street, soup kitchen. I actually have to interact with people and talk to people and learn their stories and change my perspective on who they are and what I actually think about poverty. It's too much work. And it's going to hurt, and I'm not going to like the way it's going to go. Credit card Africa.
Yeah, well, and you know
what I
what?
mean?
It could also, yeah, exactly. I hear that. But I would also love to see Credit Card Saskatoon.
Yeah, no,
Where,
hey,
no,
totally.
fucking the
Hey,
same
don't worry,
deal.
the shift is going to happen.
Maybe.
We're going to eventually fucking be the third world country, and there'll be telethons for us.
It won't matter because we're
We'll get there.
cishet white guys, you know? Like, fuck it, you oppressed us long enough.
Oh no, I
You-
assume I'll be in rags the
Yeah.
entire time.
Well, I'll probably be dead
I'm
before it
probably
actually
partially on
happens.
fire for most of it,
But,
just for my sins.
Yeah, but that being said, I think that, like, your sins. Anyways.
your father.
But I went to the Black
cousins
Lives
you have?
Matter. I saw a ton of Indigenous people, and I think I saw, well, definitely under 5,000 people, under 10 black people there.
Sure.
You know, and then I was like, well, what the fuck are we
Well,
marching here
That's
about
probably
this for?
representative of the community, though.
Yes, and you know what? And I took it as a support to all people that are victims of
Yeah.
like systemic racism.
Well,
you know?
and I think that's anybody who's getting on board with it after the initial start of the movement. That's what it is. It's not just that. It's no, the whole system's kind of fucked, and brown people get treated the same as black people. Get like any shade, pick a shade, they're getting treated shittier than anybody white.
Yes.
That's the whole fucking gist of it.
Oh damn it! I lost my train of thought. I did have an important thing to say, but it couldn't have been that important. Otherwise, I would have fucking remembered it. Anyways,
Oh, I don't know, man.
yeah.
You probably have pretty important thoughts.
Not being cruel. You mentioned that earlier. I do my best not to, even when I'm doing my best to try to figure out a text to send when something conflicts with me, I'm derailing it and going to a different.
Do it.
So
Flip the switch.
Somebody sends me this thing. It's like, what do you think about it? And I'm like, I think it's a bad idea. How do I say that and not sound cruel? I found this is one of the most difficult things in my program of trying to be a better person, to choose language that I am not conditioned to use. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh, I think it's fucking dumb. Like that's the first thing out of my head, or that's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard.
Well, and that's how you were talking, blunt.
I guess so.
Growing and be like, no, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you.
Or the environments I
I
came
don't have
up in.
time to sit here and fucking hold your hand through it. I just got to tell you the core.
But I'm also realizing that the people I appreciate most in my life are more adept at being diplomatic. And I remember watching this thing one time, and it's like, diplomacy is lies. You're dancing around an issue to make everybody comfortable before you finally, lots of foreplay for a little bit of fucking.
Yeah. But that's it, though. You still have to do that foreplay, because just try to fuck somebody dry, it's probably not going to go smoothly. You try to just tell somebody a contradictory point of view, and you haven't warmed them up to it, they might just reject it instantly.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I got to learn the right language to use, as opposed to like coming across super bluntly and just like.
Well,
nope.
For myself, when I'm being conscious of that, and I just did it right there, I try to make it my issue. You know what I mean? If somebody comes to me with something like that, and I think it's a stupid business idea, or I think it's a dumb, you're going to ruin your life doing this. If I'm trying to be diplomatic with them when I'm talking to them about it, I try to go, well, you know what? If it was me in that situation, these are the issues I would have with that, because I don't think I personally could be getting up every day at 6:30 to make sure that was going to happen, or whatever it is. And even if I know that's what their problem is, I'll still put it on it as myself, And then if you can see it in somebody else, and they're sometimes it's easier to swallow, right? But instead they just come and go, no, this is the problem with you. You go, well, no, I have this problem. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that seem like an issue you may have sometimes?
Yeah, I guess. And you know what? And it's funny. My partner, she pointed out this morning how many, and well, fuck, we were bouncing the ideas off of each other after watching that documentary last night. How many of my anxieties about society are a result of my engagement with social media? When, if I would just wake up, I do my art, I go to work, I do some tattoos, I go to the gym, I come home, hang out with my daughter, and go to bed, you know what I mean? None of this shit would come into play.
Tend the sheep, plow the field.
Or chop wood, carry water.
There you go.
That's about it. As opposed, and the more that I am able, I'm going to try to detract my engagement with social media and encourage my child to detract her engagement with social media, I think your natural personhood comes out, as opposed to the pre-programmed personhood. Because my daughter, she's engaging with a lot of like alt lifestyle people, LGBTQ, she's part of she started up her school's GSSU, Gay Straight Student Alliance, stuff like that. And a lot of her narrative and her lifestyle is being decreed by this type of social media coming in, how she should look, what her politics should be, the language that she uses, all of this stuff.
Sure.
And at the same time, I know for a fact, because I've engaged with them online in certain communities and political forums that I'm in, that a lot of these people are fucking radical as shit. And if you say anything that questions a narrative, suddenly you are the worst thing. You are a bigot, you are homophobic, you're transphobic, whatever the word is that they could slap you with, and now you're canceled. So I don't want her to adopt that personality, unless it's, I guess, an organic way. But I think that attitude, like what I've been talking about, cancel culture, pretty much all of our podcasts, has been a result of a social media evolution of culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What can you cancel if it's not on social media, And how do these people rally up their troops? Through social media. When what offends them? Social media. It's kind of a fucked up environment. So I'm like really at the point where I'm like, maybe I need to step back. Because even in me engaging with people on social media, I'm like, you're fucked. Your entire worldview's skewed. Well, that means you're a fascist.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Or I'll go to some guy.
Who, me?
What? Fuck you. Or I'll go to some like ultra right wing guy. I'm like, dude, that shit's fucking ridiculous. You can't even really believe that. You fucking communist.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just it. You're either a communist or a fascist. There's nothing in between there.
And didn't we fight wars against both of them?
Yeah.
How the fuck
Yeah.
did we just become either or? Oh, Jesus Christ. You're getting violent with Russ?
I didn't see the phone.
He
I just
puts
saw his
a-
eyes going
you're
down, and I'm
fucking-
like, here he goes again. We got dice now,
You,
Russ.
you just made the list.
Yeah.
You trying to get on a list? It's a good way to get on a
Did you
list.
see that podcast where Pat assaulted
Yeah.
fucking Russ?
That trans gentleman off camera. He's transitioning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I like your style. I like your moves. Is all I know.
Style.
Yeah. Put it together however you want. It don't matter. I'll get there.
So it's very interesting. Yeah, and I unfortunately, I engage with some fascists. I don't like them, and I unfortunately also have to engage with some communists, who many of our ethics are similar. I can't stand them either. My core ethics of like equality and ecological awareness and supporting people for being who they are, like, yeah, those are very left leaning ethics. But when I actually run into legitimate radicals that they buy the propaganda as opposed to the factual information of what happens when regimes like that get in power, I'm like, the fuck's wrong with you people? Like, I get it. Your rhetoric sounds okay until you try to put it in practice. Yeah. You're going to march into these the richest houses and start guillotining.
You know what I was just thinking is, like, I think a lot of this should be prefaced like, I want communism along with the comfortable parts of my society that I exist in. Right?
Yes.
I want societal change to the core, and I want to bring it all down, and I don't want to lose my running water, and I don't want to lose Wi-Fi, and I want to keep all the comfortable things that I have.
I like the
And then-
option of wearing colors that I like.
And I want to be comfortable with it, that it's not all built entirely on slavery, even though it all was, and it gets to be, look, you just have to be a realist. You have to realize this is how it's built is what we're living in, and we can make it better. And I do see the value in some of the radical and extremists on either side, because if there is that, like you said, that 10% of value in there, sometimes they're screaming and shouting, gets that 10% into where it needs to be in the middle of the road, where it does benefit everybody. It's just such a fucking long way of going about it and making a lot of
Is a
enemies
civil
and
war
burning
worth it?
bridges. That's it, right? Like, you can get there, but there's just got to be a more thoughtful and less destructive way to, right? But again, that only works if everybody involved in the process wants to do that and wants to play within those rule sets. Because as soon as there's one side that's like, nah, I don't really care about that. You guys worry about being thoughtful and careful, and we're just going to worry about winning, then it don't really work.
Well, I saw another meme from one of my leftist quote-unquote friends that if you're a fucking centrist or a liberal, you're a sellout bougie asshole that you might as well be a fascist. So you have to be an extremist or you're not good enough. And I'm like, get fucked. And like, this goes back to me not being cruel. I'm like, well, if that's this, let me be cruel to you. Let me give you some fucking information, about communism,
But that's that teaching somebody a lesson again, right?
Oh,
And
man.
you need to be the teacher, Pat, on this lesson.
Or do I need to be engaging with this anymore? Because like that's the other element where I'm like,
Yeah, maybe you've learned all you need to learn from this kind of engagement, and you can move on. Maybe you've seen all the nuance that's in the movement, and there's not going to be, and you might miss out on a few new points every once in a while, but you're getting the gist of it at this point.
yeah, when you're just a fucking extremist, and I don't want anything to do with it. Which brings me to, what am I reading? I recently received Siberian Education in the mail. I got it from the Evil Empire of Amazon. I found it halfway through
Jeff
it right now.
Bezos.
Fucking, yeah, we're going to guillotine that motherfucker. Anyway, so no. Siberian Education by Nikolai Lilin. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's probably got a Russian accent. It is essentially tells a story of post-war, I guess, Russia with the communist regime. They tossed so many people in jail, and they exiled people when they got out of jail and their families.
Were they talking gulag in there?
Gulag and
I was just listening to something talking about fucking gulag today, and people weren't aware of that being even a thing.
well, you'll steal a bread to feed your family and get 5 years, and then your family, because you're part of a family of felons, gets shunned by a community, and you're exiled to like the middle of nowhere, and then like you're in a war zone where people are invading you and stuff like that. So who's going to take over your culture, right? So this is the story about a group of people. I don't want to see like a tribe, like more like a tribe of people that established their own area in Siberia, and they were all from a criminal fraternity, like ex-cons or convicted, by the communist system, right? And so these people grew up with no color, no access, rations, if that, and they had to steal or hunt what they couldn't get from rations. And the glories of a communist state where everybody was a criminal if they went against the totalitarian regime. So this town developed,
Paying attention, America?
right? So this town develops where everybody is based in a criminal subculture. The kids are given knives at age 6. They're taught to use them. This is how we fight. This is how we make money. We burglar, we rob, we steal from the government. We don't talk to officials. Kind of like the code of the street I kind of grew up learning about. This
I
is,
feel like this might have been one of your past lives.
well, this is the culture that they grew up in.
You might
right?
have lived in one of these gypsy camps.
And they pass it down from like grandfathers to like the grandsons. And you know what? Family members are gone. And so the community takes care because they went to jail for a while.
Sorry, I was just thinking, just picturing family trees handing stuff down. Wouldn't it be funny if it was like grandfather's down to your second niece twice removed, and then you got a third cousin over here, and then this guy's brother, like in the straight line. You got to hand it out to this guy. You can never teach your brother about this. None of your sisters will learn.
Well, because half the time they're not around because they go to jail over everything,
But
right?
plus, it's funnier.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
it
so-
is humorous. And it is humorous. I understand humor. I'm in touch with humanity.
First time I've heard of it.
Well, so they have an example where this guy he robbed a train. He stole some diamonds off a train. So the Russian police roll in. They're like, "Hey, where are the diamonds?" Well, I'm not going to tell you. Whatever. Put me in jail. I don't give a shit. Here's your 6-year-old son, butt of a rifle in his head. The kid's handicapped for life because you wouldn't tell us. And the guy still ended up going. Oh no, he got shot instead of going to jail. The brutality that these people had to live under the Russian regime is fucking ridiculous. And now online, I see these fucking assholes glorifying this shit because they've never. It's an idealized, romanticized version, and they've never heard from the ground up from the people that fucking live there. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. Same thing. Everybody's heard the stories of living under a Nazi regime. Everybody reads those stories.
I don't know if everybody still has though, man, because it's starting to feel like there's a lot of people that just don't realize how close in history that was, and we've gone just long enough now that people are starting to you're starting to get close to 100 years now, where people are going like, it's so far removed though.
Well-
I mean, it wasn't even that bad. And
Well, I guess, to me, you've got Schindler's List. You have all the documentaries. You have all of the movies, all through the 80s. There was
well, but think
tons
about
of
it. When we were kids, like in high school and shit, when you do Remembrance Day or any sort of veterans thing, they bring them in. They'd bring people in who were in World War II, and they'd tell
Yep.
stories about going over. And it was you won't have that anymore. So they're not having any of that first-hand knowledge anymore. And then it's whatever you get out of your books. And how much does anybody ever fucking pay attention in history class? It really makes it real when it's like, no, that's my fucking grandpa, man. He used to fight some Nazis. And you're like, shit, what?
Well, there's that too. Like the veterans literally fought Nazis. My grandfather
Yeah, dude.
fought in World War II.
It's again, I wasn't joking around about these communists and fascists. That's who we were fucking fighting, the brown coats, man.
Guess what? My grandfather was Antifa. He fought against fascists.
Anti-fascist.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
that means, guys.
But at the same time, and so that narrative
Isn't that crazy too? Again, that's what that's become. Hey,
Yeah.
Like, can you picture an anti-fascist from the '40s? Hey, and then
fuck's wrong
and then
with
an
you kids?
anti-fascist now, like they would like, we've got to kill this alien quick. We don't know how it got here. Let's find its ship. And you're like, no, that's just how people look now.
Yeah, his
We're
earlobes
all-
are the
we're
size
all-
of fucking
yeah.
grapefruits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all look like a combination of all of our friends, which look
Yeah.
like a combination of nightmares.
A little bit. At least in our group of friends. I'm
Bunch
sure
of
there's
fucking
normal people out there.
living cartoon characters for some reason.
Like, I met Sigmund Sobliowski, who is prisoner 88 in Auschwitz, and I went to one of his lectures at the U of S, and he told us about living in the camps. And, of course, this was legitimately like a Jewish prisoner who had to do whatever he had to do to survive through Auschwitz. And so that narrative of a fascist rule and why fascists are bad is out there. But the narrative of communist rule and why communism is bad isn't out there so much. Nobody's
Well,
really saying
and
those
people
stories.
keep romanticizing it too, right? Because no, but at the core though, man,
The
you know,
core,
like
the core.
if people just weren't greedy and didn't manipulate it, and then it could, and it's like, well, yeah, it could, but you guys would all have to agree to that, and you don't want to. You don't want to do it in your
Motherfucker,
daily life.
just go
let alone on
follow
a big
Grateful
scale.
Dead. Go follow Grateful Dead around, and that's what you're talking about. You're fucking being a hippie. And there's nothing wrong with being a hippie. Just fucking own that you're a hippie. You're not a fucking communist. You're a peace-loving granola hippie. Because real communism is boots on the ground. It's like, it starts off as a workers' revolt for the people, by the people, and then it becomes another, like, power-hungry fucking goon squad controlling the proletariat workers who, if they step out of line, gets tossed in gulags. So all of this shit is extremism. All of it is extremism, and you need to kind of understand the oppositional research. You know, fascism isn't cool. You know, there's elements of fascism that make a lot of fucking sense. Communism isn't cool. There's elements of communism that make a lot of sense. Is anybody actually...
Capitalism isn't cool, but there's a lot of elements of capitalism that are functional.
Look around our society. There's not a fucking single thing that we appreciate in our society that isn't organic and growing out of the ground that wasn't provided by capitalism. Your car's capitalism. Your phone's capitalism. These books are capitalism. The light bulb is capitalism. Everything has been done as a result.
And in a communist society, it'd be the same thing, except it'd all be a bunch of the same cars parked on the street because this is the most efficient way to do it, and this is what we make for our country. And why do you need to have a bunch of different colors of it? I guess you can do that later if you want to.
Why do you need a 100-watt light bulb? 40-watt. Read closer.
Yeah, exactly. What's best for everybody? You using less energy is best for everybody.
Yeah.
Us not having to worry about making 50,000 different types of lights, that's best for everybody.
Well, guess
Except
what?
for
Social
Fandango
media
lighting,
is a
which you should
bougie-
video if you need any sort of lighting fixtures or any of your lighting needs. Stop by Fandango Lighting.
Fuck off with that shit. All right, Kennedy, fess up some bucks here. Get your family to give us some money, fuckos. Anyways,
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's Fandango Lighting again.
Capitalism.
Not fuckos.
Capitalism.
Fandango.
That's capitalism. Anyways, so seeing that.
But sorry, I think what we're going to get to here is that anything that's actually functional is not an extreme version of anything, right? It's all a fucking amalgamation of things. You know, like we don't
Nuance.
live in a socialist country, but we got lots of socialist type policies that we use, which benefit us. And then the capitalist aspect of it, like again, I think there still needs to be some fine tuning.
Yeah, there needs to be limits on
a little more
capitalism.
control on that fucking shit. But yeah, the way that it can function positively, it does. And then still negative aspects too.
See,
It's
I
not
would
the
like
only
to
thing.
see. Well, what do we call a Canadian society? Is it a socialist democracy? Is it a social democracy? Is it a democratic socialism? Because people always like to toss out Finland, Scandinavia, Norway as these
As more
idealistic
socialist, yeah.
models, right? Where you can retire at any time in your life and your basic income is reserved for you. You know, you can just like ride that system. The earlier you retire, the less you get paid. The later you retire, the more you get paid.
Yeah.
So a lot of the punk bands that I used to love, like I think Skit System and like what was it, Wolf Brigade, Wolf Pack, all those bands from like I forget where they're from, Sweden I think. Well, they're retired. They're artists. They get artist grants and they just live on the dole, right? And they play music and they're fucking badass for it.
Yeah.
But they're living cheap. Now those systems.
Well, again, because they live in a society where that's absolutely fucking acceptable to live cheap. They don't. It's. I don't think when you live like that too, you're not as programmed with the keeping up with the Joneses kind of bullshit.
That's a good
right?
point. That's
so
a
then
very
you
good
don't.
point.
If nobody else is being competitive about it, why the fuck would you?
And you're encouraged or able to create your own subculture
Well,
and
like,
your own identity.
And just one idea on this. Like my idea of boating, for example. Owning a boat is a fucking ridiculous endeavor. We got a million lakes in Saskatchewan, and it's not that you couldn't use one. It's just they're crazy expensive. Every time you go to use it, it's always a pain in the ass. There's always something going on. The idea of renting a boat makes much more sense. It's probably more financially viable in the fucking long run. Even if you go out every weekend, it's probably still cheaper than insuring and doing all the bullshit you have to do. But you don't get to say you have a boat,
Oh, okay.
right?
And
Because if
what
it's
are the
just
rental
experience-
places? Are they plentiful? Are they easily accessible?
Hey, if everybody didn't already
Yes,
own boats,
yes.
you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? But you don't get to have that ownership of that point of privilege.
Well,
that-
just imagine there's free cars.
Yeah.
You don't even need keys.
Yeah.
The city provides cars.
Yeah.
Is this a city car? Yeah. Get in it. Go point A to point B.
because it's used for doing what it's supposed to, getting you around to work or go get groceries or where you go. It's not used to build your status within the community and get you an Instagram fucking following and whatever else that having a fancy car can do.
Or needing the latest phone or any of that status stuff,
Yeah.
that artificial. And that is the downside of capitalism and the downside of consumerism.
And
which,
in I think in those ones there too, you can still have those things. You just have to figure out how to hustle and work for it. Then,
yeah,
right?
if that's
if you want to
the
exist
value
on
system that you put
yes,
in place.
exactly. Yeah, you really I fucking want a fucking Ferrari. You know what I mean? I grew up with one on the wall, and I always wanted to have one. Well, you can still do that in those systems. You can still figure out how to work and make that without worrying about being fucking homeless or not having health care.
So the problem with those systems that the left really doesn't want to address is, and we've talked about it before, you can't just go there. Those countries are
Oh, sure.
are strict on
Yeah.
immigration
Yeah.
because they don't want people just rolling in saying, "All right, I'm here. I retire now. Hey."
Yep.
No, you need to
Well,
contribute to
but,
that system.
But those countries still do take in refugees.
Yes.
Still do take in people that have to start from the ground up. So it's like, but I think all countries need that. You always need that constant fresh blood of refugees coming in and people migrating there that's going to continue to help grow your workforce and grow your culture and expand all the fucking things that you can by having more people coming from outside influences, right? Because that always makes a society better. And if you're being conscious and aware of it, then yeah, why would you need a bunch of people from the middle, that are all capable and can kind of do things and you can get by fine, you can already live a life over here. We don't really need a bunch of those, already in a place where you already have that. What you need is people who still want to build themselves up and still want to do the jobs that maybe not everybody else wants to do, because that's what you got to do when you're starting out.
I'd love to say that to a lot of these like yellow vest fucking right wing assholes that I see in Canada that like are anti-immigrant or anti this, anti that. Like, I want to see your kid working at Tim Hortons. Your kid's not going to work at Tim Hortons. They're too good for Tim Hortons. Oh, I'm below that. I'm not going to work at fucking McDonald's. I'm not going to work at Burger King. Who's going to work at those jobs? The people that really appreciate living in a free country where they may not get killed, or like where they have an apartment. And
Nobody
they can-
tried ethnically cleansing them that way.
Yeah, I really appreciate waking up and not worrying about machete attacks when I leave my house today. I'll go to work at McDonald's and be fucking happy I get to do it. There's nothing like privilege to really hammer home. And then they say, we don't want immigrants. Cool, you get your kid to take the McDonald's job. You work the fucking McDonald's job. No, you don't want to? Why?
Yeah.
Why? Goes below me. Well, fuck you. You're fucking privileged. You
Hey,
know
look,
what
at, look
I
at I
mean?
got my grade 10 when I got my grade 10.
You don't tell
what
me
to
I need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever seen somebody slip tongs like this? Spin chain? You don't know what I want. Yeah. No, I agree. Hey,
That's
that's what
a
it should be
fucking-
called. No, I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Confirmation bias.
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to our
reinforce,
podcast.
yeah.
Confirmation bias.
Pumping up Pat. This week on Pumping Up Pat.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Well, I can start talking some right wing rhetoric and really get things hot.
Yeah. I want to get my I don't know what the fuck. Get my something up.
Your cackles?
My hackles?
Hackles, cackles? Yeah. So, yeah, and that's
Grundle?
kind of the thing. My taint's getting tight. So, yeah, that's what really kind of grinds my gears. And I think one of my new steps, although I've also been wondering what the hell we're going to discuss if I step off social media, is to detract my use in social media. Detract. Obviously, keep it for pumping up the Pump Up Pat, the podcast. No, for pumping up the podcast, my art. A lot of my advertising for my industry depends on social media. Same thing with B. She's like going to be doing her Reiki stuff, so we're going to need to use it as a tool. Using social media as a tool makes sense to me, but trying not to get sucked into it and not being engaging so much. Fuck me. I had to go into Facebook and tell Facebook, no, I am not interested in military tactics and military equipment. Thank you, Facebook. And I'm like
Show me
Xing all these ads that come up because I liked some camo shorts, and all of a sudden this cool jacket popped up. I'm like, well, that's a cool jacket. I made the mistake of going to the fucking website and looking how much it was. Now it's like, you like AR-15 parts? I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
You want to plan a school shooting? Here's
Yeah,
the
back it
layout.
up, back it up, back it up.
Wait a
That's
minute.
just, yeah.
Wait a minute.
So yeah, I'm definitely probably gonna step back.
Probably.
Yeah, and we talked about it before about it being an addiction. I can quit anytime, I just don't want to. Isn't that the slogan of any addict?
But it's a fine line to walk too, where it's like, isn't that kind of the point of life? Is to always be doing things that make you happy, or engaging with things that bring you joy. So if you're using that to always do that, that's kind of the goal, right?
Is the internet vital existence?
Well,
Is
if you're gonna use it, right? Like you said, using a tool, using a janky old tattoo gun, you might get the job done, but it's not as nice an experience as using a machine that actually was put together properly.
Well, that's a very valid point, and having an efficient tool is much better than having an inefficient tool. And
Well, and then that's where it gets to, by streamlining that algorithm, then it becomes an efficient tool.
like even this podcast, like we've advertised, or I've paid for advertising a couple times, and like we ended up with a bunch of like new likes on our Facebook page just by saying, hey, we're interested in people that like hot rods, choppers, yoga, punk rock, tattoos, These are if
Hot
these
dogs.
if these are in
I'm
your
just adding
likes.
onto the list here,
Yeah.
trying to
Well,
help.
next time you give me a list. No. So I just put,
fucking list,
and you
yeah.
can do that. You literally click off which interests this will be focused. These are your focus groups that this is going to pop up in their feed. You know, if you're a tattoo guy, you might like this thing. If you're a chopper guy, you might like this thing. If you like yoga, you might like this thing. And it's really weird because I'm just a guy who's spending $25 in a week. You know, a few coffees. There you go. I'm going to put that on there and see how many people, and you end up with a bunch more followers through this page. So let's say I've got 25,000 to spend.
Right.
And the range of people I'm interested in accessing my little group is much wider. Well, shit, I can fine tune as many of those interests as I want, and all of a sudden I've got a narrative that I can feed them. You know, whether it's an extremist of one way or another, or, you know, a financial thing. Hey, buy my product, you know, especially if you're doing it to make money. It blows my mind, you know, kind of scary.
Well, and it's like understanding how the matrix works all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you know how to work within that and even kind of manipulate it, like you said, you just money pours into your account then. Like, how are all these fucking TikTok influencers even a thing that exists? How is just living in a house with a bunch of other kids and just being like, I don't know, this is what we like this week. I don't know, this is what we're wearing this week. And that's a thing?
Well, because when they say this is what we're wearing this week and you got 1 million followers,
Yep.
that company just got 1 million ads put out.
Exactly.
That's how influencers do their shit. If I go to a restaurant and I say, "Hey, I'm eating at Joe's today," hey, to 1 million people, Joe just got 1 million fucking, you know, advertising.
Sure.
Advertising.
Well, and
that's-
then what's crazy with me with these influencers is like, that's all they are though. It's not someone who used to be a musician who's now I want to influence things, or used
Yeah.
to, you know, somebody that had some sort of inherent value previously. It's like, no, the value is in that I'm going to talk about the places I'm going. I'm going to show you cute little videos with filters on of me buying shoes, or I'm going to fucking have my dog for, you know, like whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what
It's-
they do.
That's it. Exactly. I don't know what they do. They just fucking exist. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of other kids are all doing the same fucking dances. I seen you and Seasick flossing not too long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's
Like
from Fortnite, right?
Exactly. But I mean, that's the social influence, right? Like, I don't know if Seasick's ever played it, but he knows what that is.
Yeah, that's a very good
You know
point.
what I mean?
I saw it on Fortnite. My daughter started doing it, probably from TikTok, to be perfectly honest. And we joked around. She taught me how to do the dance, and it's on my Fortnite game. So I'm like, hey, I'm doing the Fortnite dance. But otherwise, it's everybody in your school. Same thing with this dabbing thing, which was popular a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
You go to these elementary school dances, and all these kids are just like, oh, and I'm like, what the fuck are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, running around, hitting themselves in the head. And she's like, they're dabbing, Dad. And I'm thinking they're smoking weed, you know,
Yep.
like dabs. And I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, no, it's a dance, Dad. I'm like, is it a dance? I don't know what they're
Well,
just-
that's where it comes from.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just from hitting the dab rig and then passing out.
Oh, is that what it's supposed
Yeah.
to be?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
You,
I didn't
you
know.
hit them dabs and you got all dabbed up, and then you're passed out.
Oh,
Yep.
I'm an old man. I'm an old man. I'm out of the loop. I just want to set shit on fire now. Fucking stay off my lawn.
You just want to skeet and Superman that hoe.
Oh
you know
my
what I mean?
god. Okay, so this is the deal. She's gonna hate it if I mention it, but that's even better. So B and I were walking across the street one day, and she's like, "Come on, skeet, we gotta make it, we gotta make it." And I'm like, I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, well, doesn't that what that means? Skeet, you gotta hurry up. I'm like, I think you mean scoot, like let's go. And she's like, it's the same thing. I'm like, no, it's not the same
There's
thing.
a subtle difference.
Let's
I'll
not go
explain
to
it
the
you later.
school
Yeah.
and tell all the kids to skeet. Come on, skeet. Let's hurry up, kids. Skeet. Yeah, I'm like, oh Jesus, I love
Those
her.
things. My kid's been skeeting around the goddamn neighborhood again.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my kid to skeet more.
Yeah, they told me to put a leash
Skeet,
on him.
skeet.
I don't know.
Yeah, just super slow. Misheard lyrics.
Yeah, it's ejaculate. That's what that means, folks.
Oh,
Skeet
another-
means to ejaculate.
Fucking misheard, misunderstood lyrics. When she calls me, I've got this T-shirt that I saw online. I fucking love it. It's like a virgin touched for the 31st time. Yes, I love misheard lyrics. You know.
Yeah, and that's very accurate, probably.
Yeah. Touched for the. That's my old lady, man.
You piece of shit. Yeah.
I'm gonna get righteous
You're
on you
going
right
the
here.
right way for a stab, and I tell you what.
Ever say that again?
Yeah. Don't you even think it while we're at it?
Yeah, I don't know. Yes. So there's that. The internet. Oh, okay. Happiness Hypothesis, another interesting book. There's written by Jonathan Haidt and Finding Modern Truth in Ancient Wisdom. He talks about some interesting stuff in here. And, you know, one of the chapters that I really like is that the happiest people in history were anti-fragile. they really advocated resilience to some degree. They weren't hurt by every single slight. They encouraged a culture of, holy shit, that one hurt. Whew. All right, time to get on to tomorrow, as opposed to, oh my God, I'm injured and I need to go hide for a week, which, cool, go hide for a week, then come back and dust yourself off and get on with life. The happiness hypothesis, he's got a whole bunch of different chapters, but the one that I liked the most was the anti-fragile one, where he does a video that you can find, which is Strength U University versus, I'm pretty sure it was Fragile U University. It's a university lecture on, it's kind of satirical. He does it at a university level where he's pitching two different universities and two different thoughts to you. When one is a university based on resilience and strength, more like a conservative approach, and the other is the new model of Fragile U, where everybody's going to take care of you and nobody's going to challenge you, and if you have any issues, we can call HR and get them ejected from the campus. So it's a very interesting video. I'm going to, again, on the video, I'll put what exactly to search for, but if you look up Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, and Strength U, just the letter U, like university, great video. It's one of my favorites, and it's something to look at. Really. Mm-hmm.
Well, something to look at. I just wrote some stuff down that I was like, I thought we should kind of mention. And this was mostly just stuff that I know other people are up to in and around Saskatoon right now that's kind of like entertainment-wise. Just because things are kind of starting to get going again. Looks like there might be some shows in the near future for live music and whatnot. And stand-up starting to happen. And, on the 2nd, actually, we got a show but I guess it's more of a private kind of thing. But anyway, it's still an open thing at the Feisty Goat. But
where's the Feisty Goat? What's that?
Where the fuck is it? Over on the west side of the city there. It's just a bar on the other side of town, and buddy's having his birthday thing there, so we're gonna go play that. So some stuff's starting to happen. But anyways, I got a friend of mine's got a podcast called Sex with Stone, and they just talk sex, talk sexy stuff, and
really
fucking
that's relevant to my interest.
You need a user manual for pounding. They got all sorts
your
of
boners
for all sorts of tips and tricks. So yeah, they're on Spotify, and I know they're on Facebook. So check out Sex with Stone. Stand up wise, like the Capitol, I think is going to be doing their stand up Gap Tooth Productions, GAP Tooth Productions. I think is who's looking after that, and I think that's going to be every other week. And I believe this weekend even. And then the Black Cat has been doing open mics pretty frequently for stand up, and even. Fucking you want to play your ukulele or whatever else. A lot of times that's viable. So, yeah, check those guys out on fucking Facebook, both them. And then, Sean, they're still doing their Fireside Funnies. So that's that stand-up where they come out to your fucking yard and you invite a bunch of people and then they make you all giggle for the evening. So, yeah, check them shits out if you want something to do in Saskatoon. And then we just did a little test run for our buddy Corey doing the Tahitian Room, which is... like an online streaming thing he wants to do with live music starting out of here in Saskatoon. So he's got like a space set up in this fucking space downtown that is a tiki bar, and it's dope. And and he's got a Facebook thing for it, and he wants to start making that a regular thing. And actually, I think next week,
Facebook recently banned streaming music. You can't stream music.
Well, I thought they said they could pull it down if they wanted to. I didn't know they were banning it, but now they were given the ability to block it. I don't know what the fucking reason for that would be, but
I heard, of course, don't quote me, as I usually say, don't quote me, but that they can shut down your entire band page if you stream stuff.
Oh, great, perfect. Well, let's find that out. Let's get to the bottom of that.
Yeah,
I'd like to be the first. This next weekend, I think Streeters, your brother Graham, one of his bands, they're going to be on there, so that'll be entertaining. And I'm going to try and keep in touch and find out when he's got more stuff coming up, because hopefully we can kind of keep people in the loop too, if you know a couple weeks in advance. And
see, to feed off Streeters, to give a shout out to a really talented guy in town that I don't think it has enough representation. The singer for the band Streeters, Chad, he has his hip hop project, which is Bluto the Barbarian. If you want to look up any Bluto the Barbarian on YouTube, he's got some really cool stuff. That he really got busy when COVID hit, because he was like locked down. I think his day job is restaurant stuff, right? So it wasn't working. So he got into video editing and wrote a whole bunch of music and recorded it and did the whole thing. He was making his own videos, walking around the alleys of Saskatoon with like a cell phone, and it's fucking sick. Yeah, Bluto the Barbarian, if you get a chance to check it out. There's also, I think, what is that, Bandcamp? Yeah, you can check out Bandcamp. All right. That's this week.
I think so, eh?
Might have a guest next week, maybe.
I believe we do. And we'll make it a surprise or not.
Okay, mystery.
It'll be surprising. And I'm very excited about it. It might be a bit of a fucking sit down. We'll be here for a minute, though.
Yeah, it might be another longie.
Might be a
Longie.
bit of a longie. He is a bit of a longie, too, actually. I think
I haven't checked.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but well,
That would explain a lot.
It's enough penis talk for today.
Is it? Is it?
I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Well,
Love you too.
love you. Yeah. Bye.
Bye bye.